Assalamu everyone. Welcome to our halaqah. This is the 50th Tawheed halaqah. The date is the 29th of September 2025. We are on volume 2, chapter 16. Did the Arab Mushrikeen accept Tawheed al-Rububiyyah? Page 561, about 2/3 of the way down. The starting section is a response to doubts by fabrication. Inshallah, we should be able to finish the entire chapter and this book by today. So this inshallah should be an important one. I'll read out now. A response to doubts by fabrication. Here are some of the ugly examples of this fabrication that has been made to begin, as cited in the work by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, which is entitled Kashf al-Shubuhat. The following are of particular note. Allah therefore sent Muhammad to revive their old deen, the deen of Ibrahim salam, and to inform them that this act of trying to come closer to Allah and this belief that they needed an intermediary was a right that is due only to Allah. It is not proper to direct any of those acts to any other being, whether it be a noble angel or a sent prophet, much less to anyone of lesser status than them. Otherwise, these mushrikeen used to testify that Allah is the sole creator alone, that He has no partner, and that none provides rizq bar Him, none grants life or death except Him, none controls the affairs of creation except for Him, and that the 7 heavens and earth and all in between are subjected to His control and power. And it is this Tawheed that is the meaning of your statement, there is no ilah except Allah, for the meaning of the word ilah is the one that is turned to for all these matters of supernatural help, whether the object turned to is an angel, a prophet, the awliya, a tree, a grave, or a jinn. They did not intend by the word ilah that it is meant to mean the al-Khaliq, the creator, al-Raziq, the sustainer, al-Mudbir, the controller of the creation. Mudabbir. Al-Mudabbir.
What was the translation of Mudabbir?
The controller of the creation, the arranger, I think, the controller of the creation, because they fully realized and knew for certain that these matters are only attributed to Allah, and the proofs for this have already been given. Rather, the mushrikeen meant by the word ilah, the same as the mushrikeen of our own times mean by the word Sayyid, master. The Prophet ﷺ was sent to them to call them to the testimony of Tawheed, which is there is no God except Allah. What is required from this testimony is the actual meaning and beliefs in its implications, not merely its verbalization. The ignorant kuffar know that the Prophet ﷺ meant by this that the Prophet this statement to single out Allah alone and rejection of what is worshipped besides Him, coupled with disavowal towards that. When it is said to them, there is no ilah except Allah, they said, how can they claim that all the gods are but one God? What an astonishing thing to claim. So when you realize that the ignorant kuffar knew the precise meaning of this phrase, then it is indeed amazing that there are those that claim to be Muslim at our times and yet do not understand from this phrase what the ignorant kuffar understood. Rather, they think it is just utterly the letters mentioned without seriously believing any of its meanings. If you wish to know the proof that those who the Messenger of Allah fought used to testify to all of this, then read what He, the Almighty, says. And this is Quran 38:5. Say, Prophet, who provides for you from the sky and the earth? Who controls hearing and sight? Who brings forth the living from the dead and the dead from the living? And who governs everything? They are sure to say Allah. Then say, so why do you not take heed of Him? And He says, say, Prophet, who owns the earth and all who live in it? If you know so much. And they will reply, Allah, will you not take heed? Say, who is the Lord of the heavens, 7 heavens? Who is the Lord of the mighty throne? And they will reply, Allah.
The standard ayats, which I think discussed before, and we just referred to. Okay.
Okay. So you can always read in the book. If you have confirmed if you have confirmed that they believed and admitted in all of this, and yet this belief did not enter them into Tawheed that the prophets called to them to, and specifically what the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu called them to, you realize that the Tawheed that they rejected as the Tawheed al-Ibadah, which is called by the Mushrikeen of our time al-I'tiqad. They called upon Allah the glorious and almighty night and day, but some of them called out the angels along with Allah due to the fact that these angels are pious and that they are close to Allah, so that these angels can intercede on their behalf in front of Allah to grant their requests. Or they called upon along with Allah upon a righteous man like Allah or a prophet like Jesus. And you must understand that the Messenger of Allah fought them because of this shirk and called them to make their worship sincere for Allah alone. For Allah the Almighty says, so do not pray to anyone other than Allah. And he said, the only true prayer is to him. It is imperative you recognize that the Messenger of Allah fought them so that dua be made only to Allah and sacrifice be made only in his name, and vows be enacted only by his name, and supernatural help be sought only from him. In fact, all types of worship be performed only to him and for him. So if you understand that their belief in Tawheed al-Rububiyyah did not enter them into Islam, and they're turning to the angels or prophets or the awliya in order to obtain their intercession or to come closer to Allah through them, then it was this fact that made their life and property permissible. Then and only then will you realize the exact meaning of the Tawheed that the prophets called them to, yet the Mushrikeen arrogantly rejected. So that's Mr. Meow. And in the light of what was being read before, it's quite laughable. Here I would say, so I'm assuming this is your statement. Here I would say, have you noted the strong endorsement made in the text, the lavish praise for the mushrikeen as compared to the severe condemnation of those who they term al-Quburiyin, the worshippers of graves? And I will also say that Miao, the deviant Azraqi, has indeed lied by the claims. Number one, by Allah, besides whom there is no other God, he did not permit their blood to be spilt or wealth to be appropriated except in terms of war and aggression. Number two, by Allah, besides whom there is no other God, they never acknowledged the concept of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, regardless of how it was or is defined. At this juncture, it is appropriate to consider what is outlined in the tafsir of At-Tabari, which is incredibly important in understanding the interpretation of where He, the Almighty, said, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with Him. Abu Ja'far At-Tabari said, regarding where He, the Exalted, in His remembrance said, and most of those who He, the Mighty and Sublime, said of when saying, and there are many signs in the heavens and the earth that they pass by and give no heed. And that's Quran 12:106 or 105. While they claim that Allah is the creator and provider of sustenance, creator of everything, except that they are mushrikeen in relation to their worship of Awthan and Asnam and taking other gods besides him, claiming that he has a son. Far is Allah, the Exalted, above what they claim. This is similar to what we have mentioned before, as the people of interpretation have said. Those who mention that are as follows. Ibn Waqi narrated to us, he said, Imran ibn Uyayna narrated to us from Ata ibn As-Sa'ib, from Sa'id ibn Jubair, from Ibn Abbas regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, from their faith, when it is said to them, who created the earth, who created the sky, who created the earth, who created the mountains, they replied, Allah, while also being mushrikeen. Hanad narrated to us, he said, Abu Ahwas narrated to us from Simak, from Ikrimah, in relation to where he says most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, you ask of them who created them, who created the heavens and the earth, and they replied, Allah. This is their iman in faith, while also worshipping others besides him. Abu Karib narrated to us, he said, Waqi narrated to us from Israel, from Jabir, from Amir, from Ikrimah regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with them. They said they know that he is their Lord and that he created them, and they associate partners with him. Ibn Waqi narrated to us, he said, my father narrated to us from Israel, from Jabir, from Amir, from Ikramah, similarly. He said Ibn Numayr narrated to us from Nadr, from Ikramah, concerning the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, from their beliefs, when they are asked who created the heavens, they reply Allah, and when they are asked who created other beings, they also say Allah, yet they associate partners with him afterwards. He said Abu Nu'aym narrated to us from Al-Fadl ibn Yazid al-Thalami from Ikramah. He said, it is the speech of Allah. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, if they are sure to say Allah. That's 31-35. If they ask about Allah and his attributes, they describe him without his attributes, and they just ascribe to him a son and associate partners with him.
He's more expanded. So Ibn Abbas saying, they say, who created you? Allah. And they still are mushrikeen. He did not expand because the people knew that what he means. It was natural. There is no need to go in such deep sophistication, which we need to go now, because nobody made the blunder of Ibn Taymiyyah and made it precise and split the Tawheed and Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, and all these things, except those. Before that, it was clear. Tawheed, only one deity, one Lord, one son. The moment you say he has a son, you are out of Tawheed. The moment you say the angels are the daughters of Allah, so daughters, they are out of Tawheed. The moment you say, oh, he created everything good, but the evil is created by the devil, you are out of Tawheed, and so on. All these things are not coming in, even in the horizon of vision of Muhammad, because he's blind about that. He did not ponder about the book of Allah, studied from cover to cover in this major issue. Thus, he trusted Ibn Taymiyyah has made the absolute breakthrough, which nobody can topple. And we have toppled this completely in many places. And he got stuck with that. And it would have been enough just to read the ayah in which we passed a few halaqas in tafsir back, when Allah said, مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِذًا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقَ. Allah did not have a son. This is a divine being for divine essence, because there's nothing so-called divine substance or something like that. There's non-divine substance. There's only divine entity. There's no substance. It's not like you say this sword is from iron, the other sword from iron, because there's nothing called iron and it's just existing is not a substance which can be split. It's only one being, absolutely simple, undividable. So there's no such. The Quran doesn't mention these deep issues because discussing that deep is not suitable for general public. He just mentioned it, that Allah is reporting that, and also in Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Allahu Samad. After Samad meaning the solid one, the one who has gaps and holes. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Neither he is begotten, so he's eternal, nor does he beget. That's enough to go there. But you can prove it with mathematical precision. So that's the one. And then next I say, وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ. There's another deity. Why is that not possible? Because every ilah will take his creation and go away, if it's a real ilah. So ilah is not the one you worship and kiss and so on. No. It's the one who created and can take his creation and control it. So the definition is clear. The Quran tells you what's the meaning of ilah. There are two types of ilah. Either an offspring of an ilah, that's what they call, for example, program a recursive definition. An ilah is the one who can create and take his creation under complete control. That's one. And there's possibility only one, because otherwise, if two, they would not be able to do that. There would be tamana, there would be mutual exclusion. Or offspring of such a deity. None can exist. If the first type can come to exist one, no question, is this one can have a son? Allah excluded by his report. And then the evidence of impossibility have to be derived from mathematics and metaphysics. Independent from revelation. Revelation is there. Of Quran is there. Tell you Allah, the one you claim he has a son, tell you I have no son. You are lying. So whom to believe? The one who is sending the revelation, or the one who claims yes, he has a son, without having recourse to any revelation? That's relying on the divine report, which is absolutely true. That's more than enough. So that's it. If he had pondered this ayah a little bit, he would have been saved, but he is not. He's not. The same with Ibn Taymiyyah. He developed the argument of Tamanu beautifully. I think we mentioned that in the appropriate chapter. You remember that? The whole development is all excellent. With only one problem. Everywhere instead of Ilah, he put Rab. You could say if it's done intentionally, he tell Allah, you are wrong. You should have used the word Rab there. Which I don't think he meant that. But so he's blinded. He see the ayah, but he cannot see that's the word Ilah is used. Because if he had seen it, all his theory of the Uluhiyya would have flown away. And then he has to go deeper to analyze things better than that. He did not. So, carry on. I'm just summarizing quickly. So, but I make it drawn out because I know there are really almost donkeys in human shape, like the one who posted something in Telegram about الصلوات and number of salawats. What's here? مدخلي رابط or something like that. I'll comment on that inshallah later in the Q&A answer section. Okay.
Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad narrated to us, he said, Shababa narrated to us, he said, Waraqa narrated to us from Ibn Abi Najih, from Mujahid, concerning where he says most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said their faith is their saying Allah is not our creation, He provides for us and causes us to die. Muhammad ibn Amr narrated to me, he said Abu Asim narrated to us, he said Isa narrated to us from Ibn Abi Najih, from Mujahid, regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said their faith is their saying God is our creator. He provides for us and He causes us to die. Al-Muthanna narrated to me, he said Hudayfa reported to us, he said Shibl narrated to us from Ibn Abi Najih, from Mujahid, regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said
they said not just joining others, joining in what? With attributes. He doesn't expand because everyone at that time, these are all tabi'een. For them, it's very clear. For the Sahaba, it's very clear. They don't need a further expand. But for these, they don't see any Jahiliyyah. And none of them paid a visit to India or other pagan areas to see how paganism really work and what the people say. So they thought, join other with him, join what? We don't know, join in some sacrifice and maybe join in this and this. Nobody expanded except one or two, the one who said, and they still attribute a son to him and things like that. Yeah. So that's what forced us in the expanded it. So that's the full statement as in one ayah, in a context, does not mean necessarily if he creates the heaven, it does he creates everything. Evil may be created by someone else. Maybe things down under the earth are not created by him, by some satanic entity. All of these known by mushrikeen and all recorded historically. But it was not present in front of them. It's very clear for them somehow, subconsciously. So we needed to dig deeper because the mistake made by Ibn Taymiyyah, the blunder of Ibn Taymiyyah to start with. Okay, carry on.
Their Iman is from their saying, Allah is our creator, He sustains us and He causes us to die. This is Iman with shirk and their worship of other than Him.
Yeah.
He said, Ishaq narrated to us, he said, Abdullah narrated to us from Waraqa, from Ibn Abi Najih, from Mujahid, regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with Him.
He said, the one who said, ما يؤمن أكثرهم بالله إلا وهم به مشركون. The one expand that say يؤمن الإيمان is that they believe that He is the one created us and that will cause us to die. Yeah, maybe that's his own expansion. They said ما يؤمن أحد بالله. We have to bring it to the minimum. What is they believe that there is a supreme deity called Allah. That's all what we should not add more from our imagination, except after scanning the whole Quran. This one added from his own that they believe that He's the one created heaven and created us and caused us to die. And he called that Iman. No, the word Iman means that they don't, some of them do not believe in there's a supreme deity, Allah in the first place. Well, very few with that like that. In that case, they don't deserve to yu'min billah. Some say, oh, we mu'minin billah. No, you are not, because you are not mu'min billah the way it should be believed in. But evidence for that this Iman is irrelevant and have no value is that they are mushrikeen. What's meaning mushrikeen has to be seen what the Quran classified the various types of shirk and so on. So the matter really, the ancient did not feel any need really to go deeper than that. and expand it more. And even the explanation, sometimes they add things from their imagination or miss things which they should have noticed. Only one or two notice that, and they attribute a son to him and things like that. Okay.
Just carrying on. Most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said the Iman is from their saying, Allah is our creator and sustainer, and he causes our death. Ibn Waqi narrated to us, he said, Hani ibn Sa'id and Abu Muawiyah from Hajjaj, from Al-Qasim, from Mujahid. He said, they say, Allah is our Lord and he is our sustainer, and yet they associate partners with him after.
And that's partner in what? In divine essence, in what? Just partner. Partner what? So you see, it's all confused, or they perceive everything which can be partnership is excluded. Yes, that's fine, but they never needed to expand it in details like we needed to do because of the mistake, essentially with Ibn Taymiyyah. Because before Ibn Taymiyyah, nobody really have this triple. And that's the reason they're struggling to find anywhere things indicating that any one of the ancient, up to the time of Taymiyyah, spoke about Tawheed being 3 branches or something. You can't find it anywhere. Anywhere. Leave them in a state of shock. So if they add from their imagination, like Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and even add the lies and fabrication from their own imagination. Carry on anyway.
Al-Qasim narrated to us, he said, Al-Hussein narrated to us, he said, Hajjaj narrated to me from Ibn Jurayj, from Mujahid, he said, their father, as per their saying, Allah is our creator and our sustainer, and he causes us to die. He said, Al-Hussein narrated to us, he said, Abu Tamila narrated to us from Abu Hamza, from Jabir, from Ikramah, Mujahid, and Amir, that they said, in relation to the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, none except that he knows that Allah created him and created the heavens and the earth. So this is their faith, and they disbelieve in anything other than that.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit better expanded. But even the claim that none of them believe that Allah created them, created heaven and earth and called them to die, this minimal iman, allegedly, the ayah does not indicate. They believe there's a supreme deity. Some of it function maybe this, some of it function that, and so on, but there's a supreme deity. You see the point? So they expanded in that based on their Islamic faith and knowing. It seems to be natural that everyone knows that there's a supreme deity who created him, but it's not true. There are many pagans who do not have a supreme deity. And so maybe not in the Arabs. In the Arabs, it seems the supreme deity is really well established everywhere. Because the Arabs are either pagan, converted to paganism quite recently before Islam by Amr ibn Hayy al-Khuzai, as we discussed before, and the South Arab, they are some ancient mushrikeen, most likely got extinct. What's remaining is either Jews since the time of the Queen of Saba, and Christian coming later, and in between and after the Christian, maybe also the coming of the Persian, who believe in also a supreme deity, Ahura Mazda, but a competing deity called Ihrim, and the evil one. So none of them is almost like atheistic or something like some karma or vacuum or something. None of that. That you find in India and sophisticated area, not here in Arabia. It's okay in that sense, but it's not okay in understand the Quran. The Quran must understand really so that it applies to China and applies to Arabia. But even as face simple-minded at Arabia, then you have to see if it applies everywhere. Okay, carry on. Mm-hmm.
Bishr narrated to us, he said, Yazid narrated to us, he said, Sa'id narrated to us from Qatada in relation to his saying, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, in this belief of theirs, you don't meet any of them except that he informs you that Allah is his Lord, and it is he who created and provided for him, and he is a mushrik in his worship. Muhammad ibn Abdul.
Again, you see that this one use the word Lord in a lax way. Lord is not the one who created them, it's something else. Again, you have to dig deeper because the confusion is there, because everything is equal, everything in their psychology, and there's no problem. Nobody came a problem suddenly and invented something called grave worship. And then shocks everyone, the people then scrambling to find evidence or counter evidence. Yeah, that's the reason. Because ultimately, if there's only one deity, he's also the only one supreme Lord. And that's it. Khalas, everything is finished this way. In addition, obviously, if the supreme deity is necessarily existing, simple, non-divisible, impossible to have a child. progressed. Finish, game over. That's it. All shirk is evaporated and gone. But most mushrikeen are simple-minded. They think about Allah that's like a big man or a blob or something like that, something like a huge a galaxy or something like that. The abstract level of the Quran to address that also according to the level, step by step, bit by bit. And in other places, he goes to the extreme of abstraction that needs very, very deep digging, like in Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad and few other places in the Quran. Yeah.
Thanks. Muhammad ibn Abdullah narrated to us, he said, Muhammad ibn Thawr narrated to us from Ma'mar from Qatada regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, ask from one among the mushrikeen, who is your Lord, except that he says, my Lord is Allah, and he makes shirk in that. Muhammad ibn ibn Sa'd narrated to me, he said, my father narrated to me, he said, my uncle narrated to me, he said, my father narrated to me from his father, from Ibn Abbas, regarding where he says, most of them who will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, that is to say, the Christians, saying, if you, Prophet, ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they are sure to answer God. And if you, Prophet, ask them who created them, they are sure to say God. If you were to ask them who provides sustenance from the heavens and the earth, they say Allah, and they associate partners with him, worshipping others and prostrate to rivals besides him. Al-Muthanna narrated to us, he said, Amr ibn Awn narrated to us, he said, Hushaym reported to us from Jawabir from Ad-Dahak, he said, they used to associate partners with him in their talbiyah. Ibn Waqi
Very simple-minded. كل شيء لبيك على شريكة إلا شريكا ولك تملكه وما ملك. That's again not very comprehensive. See, the people were simple-minded, taking what the Arabs say and so on at face value without going in any depth. They know there's only one deity, one supreme Lord. That's what's more than enough, without going in these deep things, which needed to be developed later by necessity.
Ibn Waqi narrated to us, he said, Ibn Numayr narrated to us from Abdul Malik from Ata regarding the verse, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said they know that Allah is their Lord and that they still associate partners with him thereafter. Al-Muthanna narrated to us, he said, Amr ibn Awn narrated to us, he said, Hushaym reported to us from Abdul Malik from Ata in relation to his saying, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said they know that Allah is their creator and sustainer and they still associate partners with him. Yunus related to me, he said, Ibn Wahab reported to us, he said, I asked Ibn Zayd regarding the verse where he says most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. He said, none worships Allah other than him except that he believes in Allah, and he knows that Allah is his Lord and that Allah is his creator and sustainer, and he associates partners with him. Look to see how Ibrahim said, those idols you have worshipped, you and your forefathers are my enemies, not so the Lord of the worlds. He knew that they worship the Lord of the worlds along with what they worship. He said, none associates anything with him except that he believes in him. Don't you see how the Arabs used to respond? They said, at your service, O Allah, at your service, you have no partner except a partner who is yours. You own him and what he owns. The mushrikeen said this.
That's the talbiyah, that's it. You see, all just is shallow, nothing going in the depth, because there was no need for that to go much deeper. Everyone perceived what's it deep in his heart and general understanding, and especially because in Arabia, where Islam emerged, and the expansion of the Muslim world after that defeated all other religions, and they did not have the desire or the need to discuss with the other deeper things. Later on, that developed with the Mutakallimin and so on. And then they developed things mostly in the right direction, not like Ibn Taymiyyah. Went back to the story of Allah. Anyway, carry on.
One can observe from the lengthy citation that At-Tabari only mentioned in his outline a single interpretation that was based on the ijma of the Salaf, with one intended meaning, that the mushrikeen had some acknowledgement and belief, but despite that they remained as mushrikeen. From among the Salaf, some chose to use the generic term of mushrikeen without further elaboration. Others provided a tad more detail, often in a limited manner. For
Mhm.
example, they said this is their belief, meaning their knowledge that Allah created them and the heavens and the earth, but they disbelieve in anything beyond that. Or they said when they were asked about Allah and His attributes, they described Him with attributes other than His own attributes and even associated partners with Him, such as by attributing offspring to Him, even with regards to when they said and worship others or associating partners in their worship with other than Him, or He's a mushrik in His worship, or they associate partners with Him, worship others, prostrating to rivals besides Him, and similar statements. Here it is necessary to bear in mind that what we will establish in the remainder volumes of this present work, what the precise correct meaning and nature of ibadah, worship, actually is, namely that it relates to acts and or statements which are based in turn on a specific belief, and that belief is about divinity or the nature of the divine, which includes from that a belief in lordship besides Allah or rivals to Allah. It is not as the sect of Wahhabism would have us believe, and which they represent in the most grotesque form, as a set of acts intrinsic to themselves, including standing, sitting, bowing, prostrating, sacrificing, circumambulation, or the like. One should also take note that none from among the Salaf, except from the Salaf, ever said that this collection of people were upon Tawheed, or that they held beliefs which were akin to Tawheed. By greater reason, none of their statements should be tainted with the slightest hint of the latter tripartite division of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, al-Uluhiyyah, Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat, or even worse, read into the statements when it's patently not there. To reiterate, Allah, the Blessed and Almighty, protected the generation of the Salaf, namely the three earliest generations, from utilizing the terms of Tawheed or Infirad separately, or the expression of Wahdahu la sharika lahu in this present cross context. None of them slipped into these linguistic errors, not even the slip which was made by At-Tabari, which might have been the first occurrence from him. Such immunity with regards to the early Salaf of the original three generation is by the mercy and blessing of Allah upon Islam and its people. Moreover, it provides a stern rebuke to the sect of Wahhabism, providing yet another refutation to the growing armory against their false claims, a stern slap in the face of their leaders, who would maintain the insidious status quo. So this discussion you put about the Salaf, I mean, is this because of Ummah not agreeing that the best
No,
of
no,
being
no,
the first
just
generation?
because they refer to the Salaf and third generation and so on. We refer to, okay, this third generation has nothing to that. It's not, yeah, just
It's an aberration.
Just secondary, just sweetener. We don't need Salaf. The Quran is more than sufficient for that. And if you put it together, all of things correctly, and compare the various contexts of what we mentioned, these 10 ayahs about فَزَعَتْهُمْ كَذَا كَذَا, they come in 7 contexts. 7 contexts, usually 1 ayah, but in 1 context or 2, there are 2 ayahs and things like that. So we have a total of 10 ayahs mentioning that فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ. That's what we're discussing before that. And if you comprehend that and see the context of everyone, you see it's different context, and the admission there is only a limited admission. It's not what Abdul Wahab think that the creator of the وحده لا شريك له is Allah. No, there's no وحده لا شريك له.
Sorry, Buff, you want to say something?
Yeah. Sheikh, so I have a question. I'm sorry if I sound like really stupid when I ask this question. But I just want to play the role of the Wahhabi here, in a like devil's advocate, just so I understand what you're saying here properly. So, with these ayahs that have been mentioned by this ayah that has been mentioned by Tabari from the different narrations, is it so I get what you're saying, but let's say I was to say Allah is saying that, look, they if you ask them who provides sustenance from the heavens and earth and who did all of this for them, they will say Allah, right? But then Allah
is not discussing that. Tabari is ayah وما يؤمن أكثرهم بالله إلا هم به مشركون. That's the one we quoted for Tabari.
Right.
Nobody don't again, you are out of context. These ayah we discussed before. Go back and read it. Don't get confused. I mentioned all this ayah because it mentioned ما يؤمن أكثرهم بالله إلا هم به مشركون. What is this iman? Most will expand that is they created themselves. I say they went over the mark a little bit. Always say ما يؤمن بالله, that something, an entity, a supreme deity called Allah exists. That's all what we can conclude from يؤمن بالله بوجود الله in current language, the existence of Allah. That's all what we can conclude from ما يؤمن أكثرهم بالله إلا هم به مشركون. Accepting other divine entities, they may be lower, but they are divine with the sense defined in Surah Al-Mu'minun. That's the way to make it correctly. The other one, which they invoke for Rububiyyah, we discuss everyone and show it doesn't show that he is if he is the creator of heaven and earth, does not mean necessarily that's the creator of the evil, for example, and so on. Or does not mean necessarily that he has no offspring, all of that. So that has always checked under the carpet, which makes their discussion completely mute and destroy it from the ground up. Because their claim is the mushrikun have Tawheed al-Rububiyyah fully. Even in their time. That's their claim. Focus on that. Don't get diverted by their this and the mushrikeen. No. Let's focus on the ayah and what's the context. Let's look at the context.
Yeah.
He was talking about it. And all of these, I don't remember if I have that in the discussion. All of these, almost all of them, I think, I don't remember now, but we can go again through them and check it again so we can improve the book later if necessary. None of them believe in the resurrection, meaning Allah is unable to resurrect them. So, which kind of deity is that? It's the definitive deity. Finish. Tawheed over, no Tawheed Rububiyyah. So all of this, or whatever you call it, is not Tawheed at all. If he's unable to resurrect the dead, then he should not be able to create the universe. It's tanaqud. Their statements are contradictory. And to have make the statement, no, it's consistent and excellent. They're excellent Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. That's the problem. That's where that's what got the better out of Taymiyyah and broke his legs. That's the problem. So it's not a devil advocate, so he said what the ayah says and what's the context, one by one. Doesn't mean really creating everything, because by definition, the Supreme Creator is the one who created everything, even evil. When the Iman, the Qadr has been separated, what's the meaning Iman bil Qadr khairi wa sharri? There's no, nothing creating evil or everything is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question of hikmah and free will and so on, that's a footnote of Al-Qadr, but the fundamental one is that Al-Qadr khairihi wa sharrihi min Allah ta'ala. He's the everything, either directly or through chains or so. Nothing can be regarded as the one who created things or created the origin. You may be a final shaper and so on, like Isa ibn Maryam shaping the world, and the Quran uses خلق أخلق لكم. This is not a creation in the sense which means he's the creator of it, because that made from the mud, and the mud is taken from the ocean, and this and this and this and this until the big bang. Who did that? You see?
Yeah. And from what I remember, with regards to the other ayah, that obviously I know this is not the one that Tabari was mentioning, but he was using it to explain the other ayah. With regards to that ayah, so who created the heavens, for example, they reply Allah. Your point with that previously was that doesn't mean that they believe that it was just Allah who created the heavens and stuff. And
there's no Tawheed there. He's the one, but there are other creators competing with him. There are other sub-creators. There are creator of evil trying to undermine his creation. If you don't exclude that, that's not Tawheed. That's maybe classified as Iman. Maybe the eye of Iman, you can say that's part of, if some of them have this Iman, some of this Iman, that one exists under this main function. So the one I said, they believe that he created himself, most likely, possibly if we have good faith in him and his mind, he summarized what these 10 other ayahs have, and they have in common these 3 bits at least. So they believe in that. And they're still mushrikeen. So you can't call them muwahhideen. They have iman. They believe in that. Yeah, no problem. But you can't call that tawheed. The question, you cannot call it tawheed. That's the issue. That's the issue. That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, one of the ayah even says, say he holds control of everything in his hands, who protects while there is no protection against him, if you know, and they will reply Allah. So I'm just thinking that if they did believe that there was other entities who were also in control.
No. Again, you were mistaken. You have missed the same what Ibn Taymiyyah missed. That doesn't exclude that he's a son who's completely submissive to his father of divine essence and can be worshipped like Isa. Go to the
until
master ayah. ما اتخذ الله من ولد وما كان معه من إله إذا ذهب كل إله ما خلق.
yeah. Okay.
That's
I'll
it.
take I'll
And
take
maybe
some
the
time.
creator of everything and so on, but his power is limited, but he cannot resurrect the dead. The ayah does not address that.
Yeah, I see.
Logically,
Okay.
is independent of that.
Yeah.
Can be control everything now and before, but in the future, the one who died and disappeared cannot be resurrected. It's impossible to because this require that there's something called soul, and it's received and recorded with the last information and data. If we take a computer model and held by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then recreated in this body, other body, it doesn't matter. The discussion about that is mute, is irrelevant. Resurrection of the dead, not the one in the grave. The one in the grave is gone long ago. The body is disintegrated and gone, and maybe part of your body now, some dead bodies of other humans and maybe dinosaurs. That's irrelevant. We create another body, but what is the soul, the personality is recorded. الله يمسك الأنفس حين موتها والتي لم تمت في منامها. Maybe that's not in the concept because there's no emphasis in that sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Don't be fooled by that. That's what fooled Ibn Taymiyyah. We showed that he was extremely intelligent. Ibn Dhahabi say he was من أذكياء العالم, for the very intelligent of the world, like fire intelligence. But fire intelligence not necessarily deep thought. There are various mental capacity. Someone is having a fiery intelligence, but doesn't lack the deep thought. Slow but deep. And or even deep thought is not necessarily enlightened thought. You don't think the things deep, but you don't take all the other connected things and possibly connection and analyze them. That's enlightened thought. That's one. Secondly, all of that has nothing to do with memory. In memory, you are average, but you have a deep thought. You will not be a good hadith narrator, but you're an excellent philosopher. That's another capacity of that man. They think أذكاء العالم معناه he mastered the claim, he mastered 30 languages, even if he does that. He has language skills. That's all that it doesn't mean that he gets the philosophical aspect correctly, has the depth to understand that. Or escape fallacies, logical fallacies, and linguistic illusions and things like that, which many people fall easily. And he fell in one which is very clear. Yeah.
Okay. Carrying on the text, we have undertaken our best strenuous effort, made possible by the will of Allah, to remain strict in the interpretation of the verses as mandated by the Sharia and principles of reason, to ensure that they are according to their apparent meanings, generality, and their unrestricted use as per the prerequisites of the Arabic language. Other areas from the Quran and the Sahih Sunnah and continuously recurrent reported history. Some of the Mufassirin from the early Salaf, as well as others who were at pains to understand some of the verses as mentioned. This was because they had assumed notions, preconceived ideas, or outline of approach, which perhaps tarred the understanding of verses mentioning the mushrikeen with their own proclivities.
Yeah.
Be that from themselves.
That's the trap, is that you think, because you think that Allah is the only creator of the universe and that entails everything, including resurrection, automatically in your mind, you think that's what the mushrikeen mean, that Allah is exists, or believe he's creator of the universe, of heaven and earth. You assume automatically heaven and earth, everything in heaven and earth, and everything there inside. You, as a believer, yeah? After Quran has come and Sunnah has come and so on. The Mufassir thinks that. But he thinks that's what the mushrikeen mean. That's not what the mushrikeen necessarily mean. You have to separate yourself from your biases and see what they may have thought really. And this is the Quran. If it's a revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's well established now. We are not discussing that. I think we've done that, or we'll do it maybe in the next second book. I don't know. Maybe I don't think we passed that. They shifted the order of the Arabic chapters. But anyway, that's another. The moment that's established, then that's what the Arabic language permits in its full glory at the time of revelation of Quran, as used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to go there and see what to read as the basic meaning of the words, not as I think or as they are. And for that, you have to see the context, and other ayahs illuminate this ayah if it's something deep like that. Because this is a bit deep. Not everything in the Quran is simple. There are things which are very deep. Yeah. But you need to watch it. You don't need just hush and brush over it. It doesn't work this way. So that's also one reason that people look at what other people in previous generation were thinking, or a pre-Islamic pagan, they think they have similar concepts. That's what we have in Islam. It's not necessary. It's vastly different sometimes in certain areas. Sometimes it's similar. Sometimes it's deficient. Yeah. You have to protect yourself from this trap. Ibn Taymiyyah did not protect himself from this trap. You think this is dictated by necessity of reason and language and so on, for you, not for them. And it is so, it should have been for them, but they are not concerned about necessity, reason, or logic consistency. They are way too shallow and confused to go to that depth. Don't attribute them depth which they don't have. For example, some Mushrikeen were sitting around with the Kaaba before the conquest of Mecca, and they were discussing something of how to plot against Islam. And some say, listen, maybe the God of Muhammad is hearing us. And the other said, if we are doing that in open space, he may hear us. But if we go inside the Kaaba, the ceiling of the Kaaba will sheet, he will not hear us. That's the way they understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't go overboard. You get bits and pieces like that, that you see what you're dealing with another mentality altogether. And the Quran describes them in a language which is precise and so on. So you don't get the language out of the border, nor at the stage from your imagination what your belief and the understanding will be. In the general, not only that, even in ahkam, you should not add that from your imagination.
Okay, continuing. Be that from themselves or from the scholars of Islam in all the intricacies and the detail that would necessarily follow. Naturally, this is a grave error, often dubbed as being a deception of insight. This requires one to have great diligence, constant review, self-examination, and indeed a struggle with the inner self to ensure that one doesn't succumb to it.
Yeah, that's the internal imagination illusion or linguistic illusion. I gave example for that, not in the book of Tawheed, because I felt that's a little bit too deep and complicated for the general public. But I gave you on various occasions examples, and also in comment of other things in tafsir also. One of them is an example that you can coin a word for something. You automatically feel that there's something which exists. No, you can't coin a word for absolutely nothing, for an impossibility even. I give the simplest example, which is clearly at face. That's the circle-shaped square, or the square-shaped circle, was an impossibility. But you can phrase it, and you think linguistically there's no problem. A deeper one, the set of all set, which does not contain itself as an element. It looks no problem there. And it caused a shock for Badr al-Dasr after he wrote Principia Mathematica with Whitehead. And then when he communicated that to the German logician, I still not remember his name, the man fell sick and needed to be hospitalized. It looks, there's something like that. It doesn't exist, it's an impossibility. A set with this description which contains self as an element is impossible, because that's not a set of all set. Or if it doesn't contain itself as an element, it's not containing everything. So it's not a set of all set. It's an impossibility. Well, the sentence appear very, very innocent. Set of all set. What's the problem with it? That's the problem with that. Okay?
Sometimes,
but it's very difficult. Need sometimes deep philosophical things. If you are discussing philosophies and other religions and other ideas, you have to free yourself from your biases as much as humanly possible. Obviously, we cannot. And then be wary about the possibility of understanding things because they have the same word like in another language or a translation. The translation will be utterly wrong. Like the translation ibadah, worship or veneration. That's not the correct translation. The correct ibadah means make himself slave. submit and enslave oneself and give ownership completely. I am your slave. I give my ownership to you. If you do it willingly, obviously, we're talking about conscious being who have a will. That's ibadah. فَعْبُدْنِي. I say, there's no deity beside me. This is a summary of that in the Old Testament. There's a long discussion what your grandparents and fathers called me, Ilah Shaddai, or go to the Old Testament and read it. Even if it's corrupted partly, still shows you there was a very long discussion. Does the Quran need to bring that? No. He summarized it, Inni ana Allahu la ilaha illa ana. When you say, who are you? I don't know who are you. Someone talking to you about burning tree. So what's this? And he introduced himself. I am this, your grandparents call you Shaddai, and so on. And they show you that they're the all-powerful, breaking the natural rules. Drop your stick and you see what's happening. It's completely impossible, except for a super being over outside the universe in all capabilities. Because inside the universe, this capability is not possible for any entity in the universe, bound by the law of the universe. There's no way it can happen like that. But it needs something supernatural. And then say, فَعْبُدْ. Then the Quran summarizes that in one sentence. إِنِّي عَلَى اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا فَعْبُدْنِي. لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا. What's there? فَعْبُدْنِي. Enslave yourself, submit completely to me, acknowledge me that the ultimate sovereign. And to refute the Wahhabi, this ayah is more than enough. Then, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِ. So, perform salah, not ibadah. No, that's based on the command of ibadah. What part of enslavement that you remember that, because as a limited human being, you cannot have me present in your mind continuously. It's impossible. So you have to get a reminder 3 times a day, 5 times a day, 1 time a day, one time a week, whatever Sharia he enacted. Look at us. Inni Allahu la ilaha illa ana, summarizing all this discussion and proving to Musa by throwing the stick. And this is super al-Ashrabi, is super, all these deities of the Mushrikeen cannot attach that. And that's what obviously he is grown by Bani Israel. He has some concepts of one deity and so on. He's not obviously an Egyptian Mushrik, although he knows what they were, the way they think. So that discussion is summarized. Then fa'budni. Based on that, enslave yourself, submit completely, regard me. I am the Supreme Lord. When it says existing, there's no Lord above me. Nobody can question me because it would annihilate reason. There's no one can say, why did you do that? That's not for you. It's not possible. The moment you ask this question, you negate yourself. You make yourself nil, nothing. So submit completely, surrender fully. And then establish prayer, because this state of being surrendered fully, you are present in your mind every second, is not possible for you now as a human being. And even in Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's not possible. Yawm al-Qiyamah, you get ilham. Subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. They're just mechanical, become mechanical. Even there, you have to be ilham. You are action making with that. But here, the realm of free choice, establish prayer. So you bring that fact again and again in the vision, in the internal vision. And after some time, it weakens. Another salah, and so on, back and forth, back and forth. You will see that in yourself. That's more than enough. You don't need more than that. But for that, you have to be gifted by Allah to see that. Did the Sahaba and the Messenger know that in all these philosophical details? Maybe, maybe not. Messenger may knew more of that. But the Sahaba were yesterday simple mushrikeen. You don't expect to jump to that level easily. Many of them jumped higher and higher, and some were just on the border. Yeah, so go back.
Okay. Some found a way to resolve such problems by attributing the given statements of some of them to the people of the book, the Ahlul Kitab. The esteemed Tabi Imam Mujahid ibn Jabr did so, and this isn't a bad approach per se. Imam at-Tabari's response contained a regrettable slip where he stated the Arabs acknowledge the oneness of Allah, as mentioned earlier. If only Imam at-Tabari...
That's the first slip ever. Nobody before that said the oneness of Allah, Tawheed or something. We use the word Tawheed, or the single, or La Sharika Lahu. Nobody. All of them said Mushrikeen, Lahu Sharik, etc.
If only Imam at-Tabari may Allah have mercy upon him, adhere to what he had stated elsewhere in his own tafsir, as extensively quoted regarding the interpretation of where He, the Almighty, says, most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with Him.
Mhm.
He who does not forget, since neither slumber nor sleep overtakes him, as agreed upon by the Salaf regarding the tafsir of this, as mentioned previously, it guides to the straight path. However, every horse stumbles, every whip cracks, and even the vigilant can slip. And
Yeah,
by
I'm
him,
defending Al-Tabari. He did not remember what he said about He did not join that to the other ayahs. That happens to every human being. But obviously, at that time, Tabari was really joining various ayah more than the average people, but not in full. And he forgot that he himself explained in ما يؤمن أكثرهم بالله إلا هم المشركون. He forgot what he said there, because it will be then will be the words of word Tawheed is wrong. It cannot be used there. That's the step, using the word Tawheed. And that's the first step as far as I know. I didn't scan the whole history. I don't claim that. But that's the first step, which is the word Tawheed is used for this for the state of affair, which it should not be used. It's not Tawheed. It's still shirk. By the evidence of all the other ayahs and all this with the Salaf. But in a simplified, amorphous, not crystalline way. We needed to crystallize it because we have to correct the blunder of Ibn Taymiyyah and then the sharpening of the blunder by Ibn Abdul Wahhab. By the way, at the beginning, I said that when he said that that's what he called the people to, and then declare them kafir and kill them for that. That's not true. He did not kill anybody for that. Albatta. What happened is if someone become aggressive and pull the sword, you will get back. You will beat him back with the sword. That's it. So he's even not knowing what history is. He's not aware about the seerah and so on. He's completely in another universe. And that's what one way, because that these issues of the seerah, the general structure is mutawatir, well established. If you don't know that, you will be getting yourself into the devil's kitchen, which already happened to many people. Yeah.
So next is it says Tabari and so
just a bit of defense for Tabari, but noting the slip. And that's the first slip as far for in the people of the Islam that use Tawheed, the word Tawheed, or because the Veda hadith that they come in another place, we use the word Tawheed or Ma'rifatillah, substitute when he said Mu'adh to Yemen, he said, فَادْعُهُمْ أَنْ يُوَحِّدُوا اللَّهِ. This is meaning say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah automatically. If the narration obviously recorded correctly. Because people substitute that for that also in ancient time in the hadith, because they take a bit liberty of the wording of the hadith, which they should not have, but they did. In many hadith, we know that. That's one. And in another hadith, ادعوهم أن يعرفوا الله فإن عرفوا الله وسعرفوا الله. That's La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's the only way to معرفة Allah in full. Because they know Allah before that, some knowledge, but that's not enough. And he says clearly, إنك تأتي قوم من أهل الكتاب. The area of Mu'adh was said is all the people of the book, Jews and Christian. I don't know the area was dominantly Jews or Christian. It's Sakun Sakatik, that's the south of Ta'iz and the way to Aden, that area. I visited even the area where he has his masjid there when I passed in Yemen. So that's, but all of us are going to people of Ahl Kitab, meaning there is no mushrik there essentially in the technical sense, but Ahl Kitab. فَادْعُهُمْ إِلَى تَوْحِيدِ اللَّهِ, meaning their belief is not enough. It contains shirk. It has to be removed. And another narration, فَادْعُهُمْ أَنْ يَشْهَدُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ فَإِنْ أَجْتَابُوكَ لِذَلِكَ فَالصَّلَاةِ فَإِنْ أَجَابُوكَ لِذَلِكَ go to zakah and so on. And then you stop there. And if you take zakat, take it from the average money, not from the top money, not from the low money. When beware of the supplication of the oppressed one. There's no veil between Allah and the supplication of the oppressed one. Whatever the oppressed one is, a kafir, a believer, his supplication will go to Allah without any veil in between. And the response may be exactly as it is immediately, or another other substitute. Allah Ta'ala says, وَعِزَّتِي وَجَلَالِي, by my exaltation and majesty, I will respond to you in the proper time, in the proper way. So he warned Mu'adh to commit any sin. That's all that he ordered him to do. That's it. No more than that. So you see, it is you have to take all of these comprehensively, especially if it comes to Tawheed and Iman and Kufr. You don't just hammer right and left and center any rubbish which comes in your mind or any blunder of scholars in the time past.
Okay, so
Okay.
next is Ayah 37:3. By him who knows the unseen, not even the weight of a speck of dust in the heavens or the earth escapes his knowledge, nor anything smaller or greater. Glory be unto him, all praise is due to him in justice and truth forever, eternally. Next section, arguments from disposition to submission. Another line of argument that is utilized is to try and link verses to the Mithaq al-Fitra, the original covenant with which mankind born of natural disposition. Natural covenant with mankind born of natural disposition. These relate to where he, the Almighty and Sanctified, said, Prophet, when your Lord took out the offspring from the loins of the children of Adam and made them bear witness about themselves, he said, am I not your Lord? And they replied, Yes, we bear witness. So you cannot say on the day of resurrection, we are not aware of this, and that's 7:172, or via the matter concerning submission to which mankind ultimately has to yield. Do they think anything other than submission to Allah? Everyone in the heavens and earth submits to him, willingly or unwillingly, and they will all be returned to him. And the next ayah, that's 383. Next ayah, all that are in the heavens and earth submit to Allah alone, willingly or unwillingly, as do their shadows in the mornings and in the evenings. That's 13:15. It is outlined, for example, in the Tafsir al-Thawri, Sufyan from Ibn Jurayj, and other than him from Mujahid, regarding where he says, everyone in the heavens and the earth submits to him, willingly or unwillingly. He said, it is as he also says, if you ask them who created them, they are sure to say Allah. The assumption is made is quite far-fetched, so there shouldn't be the time expended dwelling upon it. Imam al-Qurtubi offered up in a differing way, and at an attempt of being more reasonable to seek an escape from this presumed dilemma, an illusional impasse. Accordingly, his tafsir is that these verses provided for specific rhetorical purposes, with their underlying meaning being, if they are just, they would admit and say Allah. Then they admit to that, then when they admit to that, they will be challenged.
Al-Qurtubi say all of these ayahs يقولون, they will say Allah, they will say Allah. Al-Qurtubi says there is hadith, relying on your intelligence, that there's hadith, there's a dropping of part of sense. If they are reasonable or making sense, they would say. So the word if they are reasonable is dropped. That's the way which seems to be the imaginary impasse solve the problem. So Al-Qurtubi was quite reasonable in that. But I think we don't need to assume that. We don't need to assume that. There's no necessity dictating us to assume. There are places in the Quran we know something had been dropped, or the context forces to it without any doubt. And other ayahs indicate that. But here, why assume there's something dropped? As it stands, is okay, provided you don't let your imagination run away like Ibn Taymiyyah and Abdul Wahhab and call it Tawheed and so on, and expand it, and they are better than the Quburi and so on. If you go this way, you'll kill yourself, you destroy yourself. It's just your fantasy and your preconceived concept, which is based on fallacies and possibly on hawa, on desire, not on any objective reasons. Let that run away with you and destroy you. That's it. So you don't need. You need to read carefully and join all the ayahs in the Quran. Notice that a different context, and notice none of them mention the sun, a divine being. None of them mentioned, for example, the resurrection, the ability to resurrect the dead. All of that's not mentioned anywhere. You won't check all of them. That's enough. That's more than enough.
Yeah, Sheikh, I was just going to say, yes, I find actually this makes sense to me, what Qurtubi mentioned here, just because I was thinking about that ayah, that they will say Allah, so then how are they deluded? So by Allah saying how are they deluded, it's kind of implying that they're doing something irrational, right? But if they believed in another entity that had these powers to create something else other than Allah, then technically it wouldn't be really irrational for them to worship those beings, right? So then Allah's statement, how are they deluded? It wouldn't really.
I think Qurtubi has a good reason. I say it's not a but there's no need to assume that we can solve the so-called dilemma otherwise, as we did in a simple but more digging way. But you can't assume a third quote because someone say, how do you claim that this sentence has been dropped or intended without being written there? Appealing to your intelligence. Not everyone is intelligent enough for that because the Quran is muyassar lil-dhikr. In case of confusion for this ayah, they are deluded, for example. That's it. فَأَنَّ تُصَفُونَ. Where are you going? Why are you going astray? If that's what you say, meaning you say it without knowing the deep meaning, with you're just blabbering some nonsense, something like that. So then the Qurtubi is right. That's one of the few people, because I never liked Tafsir Qurtubi. I think I have some discussion with Abdul Basit about that. I never liked Tafsir Qurtubi because I somehow didn't get a taste for it. Because you go in 50 issues and run away from problems. But in this one, everyone has a breakthrough in one point. Qurtubi is also a great scholar, no doubt about that. But no need to assume that. This is a possible assumption. I said a reasonable solution, but you don't need that really to solve the problem. Even at face, it is solvable. But for that, you have to look at the context. You have to do the way the Quran should be tadabbur. When Allah says, they don't wonder and analyze the Quran, Al-Quran, not one ayah or several ayahs, the Quran, they're total. Otherwise, the heart are sealed. And when you're challenging these people, say, challenging them of ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. Then the whole Quran has to be checked. And then you prove a certitude it has a contradiction and show that's a contradiction we cannot reconcile. Then you have proven strength from Allah. There's not, obviously. 14 centuries have gone and everyone claim a contradiction was kicked back on his back and never succeeded. But when he challenged him to make like the Quran, it's enough to challenge for a surah, for example, and things like that. That's making. If you think it's from Allah, okay, show me. Think it's a making of a human or a group of humans or some people in a cave, secluded and writing for Muhammad, and you go, I come back, okay. Show me, do. So look at this. You don't need it. Our way is a little bit more complex, but does not take any word, add anything in the ayah or assume something is dropped there without being forced by the context that it is definitely linguistically has to be dropped there. Should have been there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, Imam, just carrying on. Imam Qurtubi offered up a different way at an attempt of being more reasonable to seek to escape from the presumed dilemma and illusional impasse. Accordingly, his tafsir is that these verses provide for specific rhetorical purposes, with their underlying meaning being, if they are just, they would admit and say Allah. Then when they admit to that, they will be challenged, revealing their contradictions, which will become manifest. But if they are not just, they will be opposed with other evidences and arguments. Broadly, it is something akin to that if the reading of the text is correct as presented in the tafsir.
Yeah. But that's good. That's a good approach. I don't mind that, but you cannot say it's qat'i so that everyone has to come to it. I want to the some qat'i, the text as that and the other text as that. That's qat'i. This rhetorical device and so on is not qat'i. It's a good way of solving a problem, but it's not qat'i. And then our tendency in these areas to achieve qat'i as much as we can. You see, you have noticed that. Our approach is to achieve the qat'i. And then we have the qat'i, a solid base, rock hard, because it's metaphorical. Because the qat'i in matter of iman and kufr and metaphysics and things like that is not rock hard, is infinitely hard, is untouchable. Cannot be toppled, cannot be broken. Absolutely firm. Nothing in reason can contradict it. Then based on that, then we can build. That's the reason when I take things out with the Quran and say, make it follow this view. Sometimes that's why you are saying that. If the Quran is from Allah, then it must be like that and that. Make this assumption. If it's not from Allah, we discuss another discussion. Another approach we have to settle. But if you claim you believe the Quran of Allah, then you are forced to take all of that in consideration. You cannot claim this is rhetorical without compelling evidence. You cannot claim this is not rhetorical. This is a tadahir without compelling evidence. You cannot claim this ayah is mansukh without forced to adopt mansukh. Like they claim the ayat al-sayf nasaghat kul shay. Ayat al-sayf nasaghat nothing. Read the ayat al-sayf. We discussed that sometime, I think, in passing. And some recitation will be completed, inshallah, in due course. The 10 ayahs of Surah Tawbah, that's like what ayat al-sayf has absolutely nothing with us of jihad and so on. It relates to people who have a covenant, unlimited one, and people who broke their covenant, and the people who committed to their covenant. From the mushrikeen around Mecca, and that's all that is there. Read it again and again and again, and you see what's going on. It cannot be us for anything, because it doesn't address anything which place over us. But they want to run away. Say, oh, you can attack people initially without even da'wah reaching, all of these things. People who love wars and what bloodshed think that's Allah said Muhammad to do that. No, it doesn't say that. It's into and he said that all Makki surahs, just read the Makki surah, but they don't want to read. I want to abrogate it. We don't need to read it, no. Because they have no compelling evidence for that. It's just against the evidence at stand. Okay, carry on. Mm-hmm. So Qurtubi's point of view is very respectable, but the problem with that is that we cannot make it the only one to respond to these guys because it's not qat'i. That's the reason. So we have to do both. But we don't know that. Maybe he's right. Maybe this is really what's the intention of the Quran. And there's some hints that maybe, but not with producing absolute certainty. Yeah.
Okay. That is from the tafsir. He, the Almighty, says, I think this is Thawri. He, the Almighty, says, say, Prophet, who provides you from the heaven, from the sky and the earth? 1031. The intended meaning of this discourse is to respond to the mushrikeen and establish proof upon them. Regarding those among them who acknowledge the truth, the proof becomes manifest upon them. However, for those who do not acknowledge it, the argument asserts that the heavens and the earth must have a creator, and any reasonable person cannot deny this fact. This is close to being a truth by necessity. From the sky, which is the rain, and the earth by vegetation, who controls hearing and sight? That is, he who made them and created them for you, who brings the living from the dead and the dead from the living, by vegetation from the earth. Mankind is from seminal fluid, the shoot from the seed, the bird from the egg. The mu'min from the kafir, and who governs everything by his determination and settlement of affairs. They are sure to say Allah. They used to believe that Allah is a creator, or they would say He is Allah if they contemplated and had justice. So say unto them, O Muhammad, so why do you not take heed of him? Do you not fear his punishment and wrath, either in his temporal world or in the hereafter?
Yeah, that's the rhetorical approach of Qurtubi, which is good. It's not bad. But I said because it's not qat'i, we cannot rely on it in issues which we want to achieve certitude. That's the reason.
So this is your comment. Overall, this is a good discourse with merit, perhaps in relation to the verse that uses the phrase la yaqulunna, coupled with subtlety and layers of additional meaning in the verses that expound the other phrase yaquluna. In any event, our discourse is the more appropriate, there being no problem or difficulty except for those who do not consider all the texts in the round, diligently reviewing each evidence and proof, moving away from the assumption that the mushrikeen in general and the pre-Islamic Arab mushrikeen in particular were somehow people of logical thought with philosophical insight, organizing conclusions based on defined premises. In reality, they were like cattle, often more misguided. We believe that we have expanded the considerable effort here and achieved as much as possible in this regard, with the blessing, help, and mercy of Allah, as all praises be unto Him. Next section, calamities. The greatest calamity upon which breaks the back, resulting in the perpetual disaster, is indeed what the later generations got entangled in, led by the Imam Abu al-Abbas Abu Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah. The entanglement stemmed from advancing the claim that the Arab mushrikeen knew what he had termed as being Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in a concise sentence. Some of the successors to this following the call of the Wahhabi movement took the matter to the extreme by holding the Arab mushrikeen by holding that they had a definite or defined understanding or belief in what they dubbed Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Moreover, they asserted that those referred to as Quburiyin, the visitors or laterly worshippers of graves, among the Muslims are guilty of the most severe form of shirk, committing kufr that was on a par or even greater than that of the mushrikeen from the Quraysh. Cited earlier in the chapter determining the reality of Allah, here again, the example is shown from the direct statement of Mir Muhammad ibn Wahab, where he said, the kuffar acknowledged all of this to Allah alone, who has no partner, and that they only believed in gods to seek intercession and draw closer to Allah. If this becomes clear to you and you understand it well, the mushrikeen have another argument, which is that they say it is truth, but the kafir believe in the asnam. In response, the definitive answer is thus to be told that the kuffar in his time, peace and blessings be in his time, peace blessings be, sorry,
upon the Prophet
yeah.
in his
Okay,
time.
sorry. I didn't say the full name. They were among them those who believed in idols, yet some of them believed in the grave of a righteous man like Allah. If you discern the truth that He, the Almighty, the Blessed, mentioned in His book that they believed in the Salihin and that they only wanted to gain intercession with Allah by drawing near to Him, believing in those Salihin, and you discern the truth that Muhammad did not differentiate between those who believed in Al-Islam and those who believed in Salihin, rather he fought all of them, judging them as kuffar. Just a vastly oversimplifying his erroneous statement there. Without a doubt, these are shallow, misleading, and baseless statements, the like of which are a great enormity, nay, a calamity born of fallacy leading to everlasting disgrace. As already mentioned, for too long this mindset and its fallacious underpinnings have dominated discourse, warping countless minds. Each of the claims must be ground to dust, refuted, such as shown as being demonstrably false from its very root. Quite apart from what has already been outlined upon this matter regarding the dismantling the myth of Allah, which by itself we deem sufficient, comprehensive by the will of Allah the Almighty, perhaps at this juncture it may even suffice to pause and ask those deceived, often in fact deranged by this mentality, haven't you made the claim that Tawheed is a tripartite division, that of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, al-Uluhiyya, al-Asma wa Sifat? So where is the Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat when we closely examine the state of the Arab mushrikeen? Why is it that you don't mention not a single letter on this occasion from the plethora of your books, writings, and including legal responsa? They are littered with mention of Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. Or is it only deployed as a tool of intellectual terrorism against the people of Islam down the ages? They have been readily acknowledged as being within the people of Islam, whether they be from the Ash'ariyah, Maturidiyah, Mu'tazila, Al-Ibadiyah, Al-Shia, and other than them. Many others from the people of Islam have understood Tawheed far better than your new sect serving Islam. Muslims are the world better with far greater devotion. None of them have engaged in mass takfir against the people of Islam or unsheathing the swords upon them as you have done. As for the Arab mushrikeen, you accepted their invasion and warfare. Is it that the Arab mushrikeen had no shirk in matters of asma wa sifat, just as you claim they didn't have as such in matters of rububiyyah? So here you're critiquing the fact they don't dwell on the
scriptures. This is there. Tawheed Asma Sifat is just an invented thing, and they have a precursor before Ibn Taymiyyah, because the books about Asma and Sifat, I think the rubbish about Quran created, not created, all this BS. The books are very ancient, and they call sometimes a Tawheed. I think Ahmed ibn Hanbal or his students started using the word Tawheed for this rubbish. So this is ancient. And then they adopted that, and Ibn Taymiyyah have to add it because they just have to follow them. So Asma al Sifat. And it's used only against Ash'ari, Maturidi, philosophers, and so on. So where is it? What happened to the mushrikeen? Did they have Tawheed Asma al Sifat or didn't have? You claim they have Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in perfect form, even Muhammad. What happened to Asma al Sifat? Tell us. So you see, the whole thing is just a BS. It's just someone got blinded by some issue, have certain desire to slander and defeat some other side. This desire force him to blind himself, if we assume goodwill, not in Shiva's intention, which is clear kufr in this situation. Not assume that until we have irrefutable evidence. I know some Ash'ari and so on declare Ibn Taymiyyah as a kafir and he's an imprint of the Jews. And we know these things. I don't think there's sufficient evidence to say that. But leaving that, taking things as they are, what happened to Tawheed al-Asma al-Sifat with the Mushrikeen of Arabs? Because it doesn't, violating it doesn't take out the fold of Islam, because Ibn Abdul Wahhab claimed that until the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, after the 600 years after Prophet, there was no shirk. After that, shirk became prevalent. Since that time until his time, almost everyone is a mushrik and kafir. But before that, you have people violating Tawheed al-Asma al-Sifat, alleged one. What happened to that one? But that's just maybe, it's not an argument about Tawheed al-Rububiyyah or Tawheed. It's an argument about this tripartite and also giving the name Tawheed to al-Asma al-Sifat. There's nothing called Tawheed al-Asma. There's studies or the ilm kalam or whatever you call it. Qida of Asma al-Sifat, and it's not Tawheed. Giving that name specifically to class, you're going into shirk area. That's the whole purpose of it. So that's not something which take you out of the fold of Islam. Otherwise, people before that, even before Ahmed bin Hanbal, and around that and so on, many of them get out of the fold of Islam. Tell us that. Can you say that? But that's that's more like a rhetoric argument. It has nothing to do with the validity of Tawheed, and it's just a rhetoric. Why are not treating that the same way the other one? What's your evidence for that? And how much of Tawheed al-Asma al-Sifat was in the Arabs? Maybe there's none at all, so they are mushrik on this God alone, completely. Maybe. If they say Allah is unable to recreate souls, recreate, resurrect the dead. That's a simple phrase used. It's deeper than that, as we discussed, but we don't need to waste time with that. Whatever you imagine under that in details, that's not a major issue. Okay. So that's completely blatant that he's not comprehensive in his power. Doesn't that make an infliction, a major infliction on the divine being and in Tawheed, and take off the fold of Islam and belief? Tell us. They never discussed that. They ran away from it. The whole thing is just an absolute mess.
Confusion. Another example here illustrates a dangerous confusion, but one different from the delusions of Wahhabism in understanding the verses we have covered. This is to be found in the work entitled Muzaj Jalil fi As'ila wa Ajuba an Gharaib al-Tanzil by Zain ad-Din Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr ibn Abdul Qadir al-Hanafi al-Razi. He writes, it is stated concerning where He the Almighty says, say Prophet, who gives you sustenance from the heavens and the earth, 34-24, that it indicates they acknowledge that Allah is their creator, provider, and sustainer, indeed of all. So how do they recognize this and thereafter worship the Asnam? We say, in their worship of the Asnam, they used to interpret it as the worship of Allah. A group among them said, we do not qualify to worship Allah, the Almighty, without the presence of an intermediary, given His greatness and majesty, and with our shortcomings and despicableness. Hence they made the Asnam and intermediaries, as they had said, we only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah. A group said they take the Asnam in the depiction of the angels worshipping them so that those angels would intercede with Allah. Another group are those who said the Asnam are our Qibla to which we worship Allah, the Kaaba also being a Qibla of worship. Yet the majority were saying that each Asnam had a shaitan entrusted to him by Allah the Almighty. Whoever worships the Asnam, doing so by right, shaitan caters for his need needs as per what is needed by the command of Allah. Similarly, whoever fell short in the worship of the Asnam, Shaitan would be afflicted by the command of Allah. So all the groups who worship Asnam, they were worshipping them as a means to draw close to Allah, but via different pathways.
This is obviously the man does not know what shirk is, what asnam are. So we discussed that previously. We don't need to comment on that. That's not a good solution. That's a very bad solution. It's not like Qurtubi, which is much better. Actually, a very good solution. The only thing which we did not adopt it in full and ignore anything else because it's not qat'i. That's it. But this is just manifestly rubbish. Manifestly rubbish.
To respond to this, we note that here yet again that there is the statement that somehow the Arab mushriki knew, recognized, and acknowledged Allah as being the creator, provider, and the sustainer of all. But this is to lead with an interpretation of the verse by one's own inclination or belief. It is not applying strict principles of adherence to the explicit actual meaning of the text as it stands. Hence, he reads into the verses what he imagines, not considering them as they are in essence. The approach is a deceptive since it makes the writer believe that the text is fitting his pre-arranged notion. Instead of submitting outright...
Also taking the text of one ayah, for example, said, he referred to we wish him to bring us closer to Allah, we are not worthy of that, and so on. Most likely he mentioned the ayah, وَمَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا يُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. Yeah? And this is the one which is very used often with the Wahhabi, simply because they don't read the ayahs before and after. If they read the ayah after, it's really clear. مَا اتَّخَذَهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ. Allah has no offspring. So the one they are honoring and supplicating and bowing and so on, they believe they are from divine essence. They are the offspring of Allah, and these are the one who read the ayah next. They didn't bother, as if the ayah does not exist. That's not the way the Quran should be tadabbur. The ayah in certain order, the ayah immediately next to that, the thing in the opening of Surah, we did not come to that in tafsir yet. We'll get inshallah, and we'll comment on that in detail. So taking the ayah out of context, then he fits his imagination there. If you looked at the context, everything would have flown away. But he doesn't look. It's not fashionable to look at the context. It's very fashionable at the time of this Hanafi especially, but even the time of Tabi'een and after Tabi'een, is to make the Quran adil, cut it in pieces. I like this piece, fits my desire, that's all I ignore that. Either it's mansukh, if it's a matter of ahkam, or it is it's another issue. But why it come next to that? How can you claim it's not connected to the ayah before that? It may be disconnected because the Quran every surah has the certain blocks that are not related to each other in a direct way. So you don't need the next block to interpret the previous block in that sense. That's the meaning of disconnected. There may be some rhetorical or beautiful aspects common to them, but this is the plus points, not fundamental. But this one is very fundamental. The ayah ما نعبدهم والذي اتخذوا من دونه أولياء ما نعبدهم إلا يقربون إلى الله زلفى. And the Quran condemns that and then said ما اتخذ الله من ولد وما كان. I don't remember the ayah. We can open it. I don't remember even the surah. It's the beginning, the second ayah of the surah. One of the, I think, Hamim al-Sajda, or maybe Hamim al-Sajda, if you can check. Hamim al-Sajda.
It's going to take too long for us to check.
Check quickly, since we are there. Maybe I answered with him after that, but check now quickly.
So what wording?
Hamim Fussilat. Read the first ayahs.
Okay, so 1 second, let me find Hamim.
Fussilat. Hamim al-Sajda or Fussilat. Because the only Hamim who has a Sajda is Fussilat. So they give it the other name, Hamim al-Sajda or Fussilat. It must be in the numbers of 40, something like 35, 40.
Yes, so Surah 41, So which the bestowal تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم. So
Carry on.
just
حاميم تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم. Yeah.
كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون.
Mhm.
بشيرا ونذيرا فأعرض أكثرهم فهم لا يسمعون.
Mhm.
وقالوا قلوبنا في أكنة مما تدعونا إليه وفي آذاننا وقرا ومن بيننا وبينك حجاب فاعمل إننا عاملون.
I think this is not a surah, but read the next ayah and then we stop there. It's not, it's another ayah.
قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى
No, it's not,
إلي. Okay.
it's not this one. It's not this one. I think it's one of the how maybe Zumar, but don't search. But this, I see, maybe I commented on him. I mentioned that, or maybe I missed it. But clearly say, يعبدون يقربون من الله زلفى. Or if you have a search for the words of the Quran, ليقربون زلفى. Zulfa is rarely used in the Quran, so you will catch that place easily. It will bring you maybe a few results, and one of them is that ما نعبدهم ليقربون إلى الله زلفى. Anyway, let's compare. Maybe I answered to him in that. Maybe I missed that to answer him because it's answered in another place.
The approach is deceptive since it makes the writer believe that the text is fitting his prearranged notion instead of submitting outright to the guidance of the infallible revealed wahi. Such a flawed approach has been outlined before. No wonder, therefore, that issues can remain clouded in confusion, the pathway to the correct path obscured. As for the comment regarding the first group, who sought to make the Asnam as intermediaries, as claimed it is but an illusion without a substantive basis in reality, this is because the Asnam are nothing more than tamathil, statuettes or objects that are believed to represent or have a strong connection to a divine being or entity of some sort. It serves as a form of delegation, association, or representation, being one of the 5 types: union, permanent inclusion, temporal inclusion, body member, and conduit. Here the discussion is more pertinent to hone in on what is considered as that divine being or entity, which, as mentioned, is considered to stem from an angelic form. The justification for having this as an intermediary is 1. Intimately tied to the belief that the entity intermediary is born from the offspring of Allah, making it of divine nature or essence. Given this view, the view is that it was worthy of worship in its own right, given the divine lineage or nature, which is raised, elevated. Moreover, it was stemming from the view that this was beloved to the father, bringing joy, satisfaction to the parent through the pleading of intercession by the child. That was the core idea underpinning the statement made by some of the Arab mushrikeen, who said, "We only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah." Number 2, they had the view that Allah was not all-knowing, therefore meaning he would be unaware of the conditions related to those worshipping him, requiring something to intercede on their behalf to convey their needs on. Placing the idea of a deficiency in this realm related to knowledge flatly contradicts the perfection of uluhiyah, divinity. However, the mushrikeen may have falsely and deceitfully made this claim that it was as a result of Allah's majesty, exaltedness with the humble worshipper, but an insignificance proceeding from unworthiness to transcend a matter of corruption. Alternatively, those regarded as intellectuals among them might have well argued that having direct knowledge of the details of the individual circumstances requires direct involvement in their affairs, which, according to their corrupted beliefs, is not befitting for Allah. Consequently, they imagined Allah as an unconscious and deaf force, not aware of anything else. This view is held by those who adhere to the concept of intellects, or the 7 or 10 celestial souls, along with many philosophers. Number 3, they had claimed that Allah was sufficient in power, that he was in need of was deficient in power, that he was in need of assistants and ministers. Such a view is most likely held by the majority of the common simple-minded mushrikeen, be they Arab or otherwise. Number 4, another group suggested that regardless of whether Allah be all-knowing, powerful, creation is done aimlessly, upon a whim, then he has turned away from creation, neglecting it entirely. They hold the perception that this is arrogant, aloof, and thus reaching this divine being can only be undertaken by way of intermediary. Yet such intermediaries can't be part of creation, since Allah transcends that they would have no significance. Thus, the intermediaries must be from divine origin or essence, necessarily being necessary beings containing no flaw, allowing them to approach Allah within the same divine realm. Others have found or provided differing justifications regarding the matter of appointing intermediaries, yet all of which may necessarily imply that there is a multiplicity or plurality of divine beings or entities. They may seek to attribute or apportion qualities related to incapacity, dependency, or even deficiency to Allah, the central and supreme deity, if such beliefs are held by some. Alternatively, they may ascribe notions of acting upon a whim, indifference, or a lack of care to him, even if the mushrikeen attempted to justify this through falsehoods, such as alluding to the majesty and greatness of Allah, or their own inadequacies, or even by claims that it is related to seeking closeness. The number of excuses, justifications, all the like, all stem from a clear lack of belief in a singular divine entity. Others may have deliberated upon differing justifications or rationale to the matter of taking intercessors or intermediaries, all of which necessitate the viewpoint of multiple divine entities, or the attribution of deficiency and inadequacy to Allah, if he is present within the beliefs of the people. They may also have attributed the notions of indifference, negligence, or even being frivolous towards him. Even though the mushrikeen attempted to justify this with falsehoods, like expressing our worthlessness and insignificance before the full majesty and greatness of Allah, or even with the falsehood they uttered, which the verse informs us of, we only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah, or whether the attribution is made to gods in plurality, or the notion of divinity in general among those who didn't necessarily believe in a central higher authority. With regards to the second group, it is but an offshoot of the first. Within this context, we have already outlined definitive evidence to the levels of certitude that the belief held by the Arab mushrikeen regarding the angels was that they were believed to be the daughters of Allah, the majority of the Asnam being nothing more than depictions of statues supposedly representing this. In relation to the third group, with the claim that Asnam being a Qibla for them in the worship of Allah, I do not believe that such a belief actually existed among the Arabs. It seems to be a view held by some later mushrikeen when they were challenged by the followers of Islam. Overall, the claim appears as a fabrication with no substantive basis aimed at justifying the multiplicity of Asnam with varying names or attributes. If the Asnam were really the means of or Qibla for approaching one Allah, then surely all of them, whether that be from among the common folk or the political elites, would have agreed that the statues represented but one God. Yet this is clearly not the case. The question remains, is it rational to attribute the eternal perfection and beautiful essence of one God, Allah, to a mere statue? What would be the justification for the multiplicities of statues with the varying forms and names? Why would they be made as a Qibla instead of facing the North Pole, for example? Did any wahi come from Allah to support such a practice? It is acceptable for them to admit that this is born of their own invention, a new legislation they inaugurated. By such an admission, they would be declaring themselves, their forebears, priests as being rival legislative authorities besides Allah. Hence, they do not acknowledge the Hakimiyya of Allah. Perhaps some of them will be of the people who declare innocence when confronted with the bleak reality, as noted in the text clearly. When we gather them all together and say to the polytheists, where are those who you claim were were partners with Allah in their utter dismay. They will only say, by our Lord, we were not of the mushrikeen. See how they lie against themselves and how those they invented have deserted them. And that's Quran 22 and 24. Regarding the fourth group, the ones that claim in every Islam there is a shaitan appointed by Allah the Almighty and that shaitan fulfills their desires, I don't believe that such a belief actually exists or existed in this temporary world. It seems to be born of the imagination of Sheikh Zainuddin al-Hanafi al-Razi, being influenced by the narratives that mention with every Islam is a shaitan speaking to them, and the like. Here, though, he went to the extreme, it seems, with his concocted notion, yet it is absurd, contradictory, and very difficult to imagine being formulated by a sound mind. It is impossible, nay, completely inconceivable, for those shaitan to be sent by Allah acting upon his command. It would be the work of their heads, Iblis, the chief of the shayateen, and not Allah. Even if the statement were modified to read, with every Islam is an angel, it cannot resolve the dilemma, since it would stand in contradiction to the well-established historical accounts. Concerning his comment of whoever worships the Islam, doing so by right, needs greater clarity. If what is meant by this is limited to a set of actions, bowing, prostrating, standing, sitting in front of it, offering sacrifices, offerings to it, presenting incense, burning candles, etc., then this notion is unprecedented in attributing any form of divinity or lordship to anything other than Allah, or considering it as an intermediary to reach Allah. Even if it is considered in a symbolic sense, it still does not qualify as worshipping a statue originally. Rather, it can be described as A, it is by the command of Allah, with worship directed solely to Allah, akin to the prostration of the angels to Adam. It was an act of obedience to Allah, the one true God. If that was the meaning intended by Sheikh Zainuddin al-Hanafi al-Razi, then the people are not mushrikeen, and this is a direct contradiction to the Quran. B, if it is by the command of other than Allah, be that ancestors, priests, or rulers, then it amounts to taking them as rivals in legislative authority besides Allah, which is an act of shirk in Hakimiyah. Lastly, if the intended meaning behind the statement, whoever worships the Islam doing so by right, is that the worship is true in the sense of knowing it fully and correctly, then this implies that Allah commanded them to believe that there is some form of divinity in Islam, while in reality there are nothing but created entities. They possess nothing except what Allah grants in this temporary domain. They can do nothing except by Allah's decree. They cannot act or do anything except by His cosmic permission. In other words, there is no absolute divinity in them. This notion is impossible and inconceivable for Allah, the true and clear King, because it involves deception, falsehood, and reporting contrary to reality. Such attributes belong to the shayateen, to the shaitan, and not to Ar-Rahman. Okay, then the next section is phantasmagoria. I'm not sure what that means. The foregoing discussion showed the invalidity of what has been mentioned in the work entitled Ma'arij al-Qubul bi-Sharh Sulim al-Wasl. Those worshipping the Awthan acknowledge that they are invoking besides Allah, the mighty and sublime, are but created entities having no control over themselves or their worshippers. They neither cause the harm nor benefit or experience life or death or resurrection. They can't hear, see, or nor avail themselves in any matter. They also admit that Allah is unique in creating, providing sustenance, causing benefit and harm, in decree, and all forms of taking care of affairs. No such attributes belongs to them or their Awthan. Rather, it is Allah who is the creator, everything else being the creation, and He is the Lord of all else, subject to His dominion. In response to this line of reasoning, I would argue that it is littered with a series of allegations and false assertions. The opening statements of the quote is ludicrous. Given this supposed acknowledgement, they still worship them, in other words, glorifying them, seeking benefits from them, including protection from harm. Indeed, this is something that doesn't even form in the minds of the insane. It can only appear in the deranged mindset of the adherents of Wahhabism. a sect whose beliefs are so corrupt it is beyond repair. They are incapable of distinguishing between the reality of idols as it is known through Allah's knowledge, which He has informed us about in His revelation, and the beliefs of those worshipping the Awthan, Asnam. This is again a matter of insight deception. The second half regarding the mushrikeen acknowledging that Allah is the ultimate deity with perfect attributes is a pure lie. It stems from distorted, even truncated reading of the well-known verses in this regard, as previously iterated. Underpinning this too is a shocking ignorance regarding the actual reality pertaining to the shirk among the Arabs. Despite this, the author of the work proceeded to build a series of statements, a house of cards built upon false premises. He wrote, "They associate partners with him in relation to his creation, attributing to these partners to be worshipped alongside him. This while denying his exclusive right to be worshipped. When invited to the testimony, there is no God except Allah. They said to them, how can he claim that all gods are but one God?" 38:5. Allah the Almighty obligated them to act upon the requirements of al-Rububiyyah, which they acknowledged, thus abiding by the essence of Tawheed, disavowing that what they had taken besides him, just as they acknowledged their powerlessness with their lack of any attribute deserving worship. They must reject those entities entirely and treat them as unworthy of worship. In fact, those entities are even weaker, lower, more insignificant, and more powerless than to create a mere fly or rescue anything from it if it takes it away. Even worse, this is your statement, with more fantastical phantasms, he says, this is from the book, whoever ponders over these verses which we have mentioned, truly comprehending the meaning, will know with certitude that the worshippers of the Awthan acknowledge the matter of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, and they bore witness to the uniqueness of Allah concerning that. They associate partners with Allah the Almighty in matters of the divine, in that they worship others alongside Him. This is the Zahir, apparent, and other divisions of Tawheed are interconnected. Whomsoever associates anything with Allah in such aspects, then they have associated something to other than Him, as will be outlined by the will of Allah regarding the exposition about shirk. An example that illustrates this is the hadith of Imran ibn Hussein, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Prophet ﷺ said to his father prior to his Islam, "How many deities do you worship?" He replied, 7, 6 in the earth and 1 above the heavens. He, peace be upon him, said, "Which of them do you take account of regarding your hopes and fears?" He replied, that in the heavens. Moreover, in this verse, it is also evident that their association of partners with Allah was only during times of ease and prosperity. In those times of hardship or adversity, they would sincerely turn to Allah alone, to worship Allah alone. This is because they knew that no one else could alleviate their situation except Him. They were aware that their gods neither could harm nor benefit them, not having power over anything. As He, the Almighty, says, wherever they go on board a ship, they call on Allah and dedicate their faith to Him alone. That's 29, 55, and 56. And what is in the meaning of these verses? There are... One second, Shane. 1 second. And what is in the meaning of these verses? There are other indications aside from what we mentioned and not mentioned. The central point is that al-Rububiyyah and al-Ilahiyyah are interconnected. One cannot be separated from the other. And the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah was not denied by anyone except for the arrogant like Fir'aun and Nimrud, while the dualists believed in two creators for existence. Allah the Almighty is far above what the wrongdoers claim to. And that's from Amarij al-Qabal al-Salim al-Wusul. How does one respond to the comments born of phantasmagoria or the deranged? Perhaps a more prudent approach is to outline substantive comment on the well-known phantasms, lies arising from their taqleed. In relation to where he states that the association of partners was only in times of ease and in times of difficulty, they would turn sincerely to Allah, I would ask the genius author to outline what is it that they are turning to, worshipping following arrival on land after adversity at sea. The illusion here is there. The illusion is there with the mention of worshippers of Othan, but there isn't a recognition that this worship entails veneration, seeking benefit from them, or seeking protection from harm. That very notion doesn't enter the minds of adherents of Wahhabism. Hence, they are incapable of making any distinguishing outline as to the true nature of the Asnam, as Allah has informed us in His Wahi, and as His messengers, peace be upon them all, have outlined in their confrontative arguments with the mushrikeen. How, therefore, are we to understand the cited verse from Surah Al-Ankabut, as well as the tradition mentioned by the way of Imran ibn Hussein and what his father said? One should realize that the matter is abundantly clear as the sun. Allah, the Almighty and Sublime, is viewed to them as being the only central highest deity in their mind. He is not the one and only God, as it rests within their set of beliefs. He is reserved for times of acute distress and or major events generally, as the verse indicates, set within the minds and belief of the Arabs, or some of the Arabs, as the context here addresses the Quraysh, the people of the sacred precincts. Allah is viewed as being specifically associated with the sea. He is the God of the sea in their belief, with no partner in this domain, just as He is the God of the sky, unique in that respect. The verse serves as evidence of their shirk in matters of managing and controlled affairs, not the opposite of as this fool would assume. Similarly, the tradition he cited from Imran ibn Hussein about his father's comments meticulously outlined that. Thus, based on the previous discussion, it should become clear what has been advanced in Sharh at-Tahawiyah is manifestly invalid. Namely, they did not believe that about their asnam idols, that they participated with them in the creation of the world. Their beliefs were the same as those of the mushrikeen of the world, the Indians, Turks, Berbers, and others. Sometimes they believed that their asnam represented some pious men, prophets, or saints who would intercede for them with Allah and bring them closer to Allah. This was the root of the shirk of the Arabs in talking about the people of Noah. Allah states, they said, you do not renounce your gods, and do not renounce Wad, Suwa, Ya'uq, or Nasr. It is confirmed in Sahih al-Bukhari, the book of Quranic commentary, narratives of the prophets and elsewhere, from Ibn Abbas and other elders, that those were the names of some pious people among the people of Nuh. When they died, the people gathered over their graves, then put up their statues, and after a period of time they began to worship them. And these particular asnam were passed on to the Arab tribes, and Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, mentions that where they went to tribe by tribe. This is your commentary. Yet again, the crimes of adherence to the sect of Wahhabism are shown, with the outright rejection of reasoned thought and the construction of beliefs that are based upon myth and superstition. All the while, blatant disregard is made for authentic evidence stemming from Wahi, as outlined earlier regarding the historic reality of shirk among the Arabs. However, the present author of the Sharh at-Tahawiyah falls into the worst of contradictions. He writes, since shirk al-Rububiyyah is impossible according to all peoples, that is, the confirmation of two creations similar in attributes and actions, some of the mushrikeen advance the claim that there is another creator that created part of this world. This is what the dualists say concerning darkness, what the Qadariyah say about actions of animals, and what the naturalist philosophers say about the movement of the planet's souls in physical bodies. All of them posit events that are not brought into existence by Allah and associate partners with Him in the act of creation. They are mushrikeen in some aspects of Rububiyyah. In fact, many of the Arab mushrikeen and others thought that their gods could bring about some good or cause some harm, even if Allah did not bring such good or harm into existence. In response, this is you, I would submit several responses to the author of the Sharh at-Tahawiyah. Firstly, the statement made relating to the rejection of confirmation of two creators similar in attributes and action is indeed correct. However, this is not the only form of shirk that can occur concerning ar-rububiyyah. Not by your definition, neither according to the definition of your scholar and totem Ibn Taymiyyah, despite his insistence. Secondly, with regards to the matters of benefit and harm, these are actions which necessarily require an agent. This agent, if a created being, must have a creator. The text shows that the author already alluded to their belief in these deities without Allah creating that. So in this case, those supposed deities must be created entities, thus they must have a creator. If they are not created beings, then what are they? They must be perceived as being divine creators, regardless of how the matter is viewed. This is undermining your own claim that the Arabs did not commit shirk in the matter of ar-rububiyyah. In fact, this is precisely what the present author, together with the vast majority of adherents to the sect of Wahhabism, have stubbornly arrogant and clung to. In truth, with certitude, the reality is that all the famous verses, those which state la yakuluna and fasa yakuluna, as mentioned earlier, are a compelling rational argument and beautifully expressed. They have been present to demonstrate the contradictions of the mushrikeen, the absurdity of their mentality, despite acknowledging Allah through the statements mentioned by decisive belief, which assert at one and the same time, with assent at one and the same time, they associate others with him in some divine attributes and in matters of lordship, ar-rububiyyah. Consequently, they associate partners with Allah, worshipping those false deities based upon corrupt kufr and shirk set of beliefs. Hence, their iman, faith, is utterly flawed. It is incomplete, rendered invalid. One who held such a belief was not led from kufr to Islam, nor would it provide any salvation in the hereafter, because it is mixed with shirk in the roots of belief. The absence of this erroneous belief is preferable to its presence, because it is riddled with contradictions. Regardless of the definition that one may adhere to or seek to put forth, fundamentally, within these Quranic verses, there is no affirmation of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, nor that of Tawheed al-Khaliqiyyah, nor Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Neither is there affirmation of Tawheed al-Dat, nor that of Uluhiyyah. Neither is there mention of Tawheed al-Dat, nor that of Asma al-Sifat. And definitely it does not extend to Tawheed al-Hakimiyyah, nor any form of Tawheed. Such a matter shouldn't be obscured from anyone, provided they engage in a deep, thoughtful reading, enlightened by the text of the Quran and the Sahih Sunnah, together with the well-established definitive historical facts transmitted by continuous recurrent narratives. Indeed, Sheikh Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur at-Tunisi was correct and proficient in what he said in Al-Tahrir wa Tanwir. Considering what they found their forefathers upon was that of making shirk with Allah in divinity, if someone were to ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they would say Allah created them. That is the absurdity in their reasoning, in which they simultaneously acknowledge Allah as the creator while holding a belief in the divinity of others besides him.
That's exactly the right way to go, yeah.
The intended meaning, the heavens and the earth, encompasses all that is created therein, including the stones of the Asnam. The use of the phrase La ya'lamuna, they do not know, here, and that of La ya'qiluna, they do not reason, as in Surah Al-Ankabut, but Al-Ankabut indicates a skillful expression of this description between the two stories while maintaining a unified meaning. So continue with this is your final section and final commentary of this book. A brief comment to act as an addendum to this is required, as per the final sentence which is mentioned. Strictly speaking, it is not correct, given that where it is expressed as they do not know, as per the verse in Surah Luqman, it is meant to highlight their acknowledgement. Their acknowledge is but superficial, and they only provide acknowledgement to a part of what the statement "He created the heavens and the earth" entails, without having complete knowledge of all its details or implications. It does not indicate a definite belief in its entirety or in part. True knowledge is a firm conviction that corresponds to reality. Hence, they have a profound lack of understanding and ignorance of the complete meaning of the statement. Allah created the heavens and the earth, which is the reason for why they are described as they do not know. As for what is detailed in Surah Ankabut, but Allah may He be exalted, glorified and exalted, said, if you ask the disbelievers who created the heavens and the earth and who harnessed the sun and the moon, they are sure to say Allah. Then why do they turn away from Him? It is Allah who gives abundantly to whomever or to whichever of His servants He will, and sparingly to whichever He wills. He has full knowledge of everything. And next ayah, if you ask them, who sends down water from the sky and gives life with it to the earth after it is dried, they are sure to say Allah. Say, praise belongs to Allah. Truly, most of them do not use their reason. The life of this world is merely an amusement and a diversion. The true life is in the hereafter, if only they knew. Whenever they go on board a ship, they call on Allah and dedicate their faith to Him alone. But once He has delivered them safely back to land, see how they ascribe partners to Him. Let them show their ingratitude for what we have given them. Let them take their enjoyment, soon they will know. And that's to both of 29, 61 to 66.
Just a point quickly, the translation. They translate this with a ship and so on. Da'u Allah mukhlisina lahu ad-din. They ask Allah, devoting all they say faith. Is not deen there, meaning devotion, not faith. But they are wavering. They don't know the various meanings of deen. Deen means judgments. Deen means allegiance. Deen means devotion, and so on. These mean religion as a way of life, its principles, and so on. An abstract entity called deen. That's different. That's not meant here. What's meant here is their devotion. They devote themselves completely to Allah at sea. Whatever the reason, because the supreme deity, which really the only one can help in such a big calamity, or He's the only Lord at sea, or something like the unfollowed Neptune and things like that. Because the Mushrikeen, they have a god of the heaven, a god of the earth, a god of the under earth, a god of the sea, and so on. And these are different entities.
Okay. So this is the last paragraph. The texts contain different statements that, if rationalized correctly by linking them together, starting from rational necessities combined with sensory data, would produce complete pure knowledge and Tawheed. However, as the verses show, the people are not using their intellect.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of this chapter and the end of this book. So if you'd like to make any commentary or anything.
No, I think we discussed in between enough. So Ibn Ashur is very close without expanding very much. And inshallah, when we revisit the book, we'll add some sentences there, abridge it in some places, maybe it's repetitious and so on. But that's it. So it's very clear now. I think it should be clear to everyone. It's based on the most extreme stupidity is that the one that they worship the idols, although they be created, they cannot harm, they cannot do this. So what meaning worship? What do you want from the idols if they are just stone? If that's the reality, that's the reality of the idols as Allah explained to us. That's not the belief of the Mushrikeen. They confuse the belief of the Mushrikeen with the reality as described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think this is enough to show that these people are having some crack in their brain, if they have brains in the first place. That's enough. There are so many things, but we try to close every way for them of escape, because they escape from it. They start to wonder, what's about this? What about it? What's about Allah? So we close everyone, alhamdulillah. I don't think there's any argument they have of any rational or proper meaning. If you expose the fallacies, they project what in their mind, and that's what I think that's what the same thing is in the mind of Mushrikeen. No, not necessarily. You have distinguish between what you believe because of your tradition, because of your education, and so on, of the other one believes. Even if you use the same words, he may use a primitive word. Maybe he's amorphous. Maybe he's confused. Maybe you are much sharper than him. So you cannot claim that he's as sharp as you, or less sharp or more sharp without evidence. And scanning what the Mushrikeen everywhere in the world have, that's what the scan what resulted. On the nature of Asnam, and Asnam are not the Timthal. And that's clear from Ibrahim. When he told him, what are these statues are devoted to? Say, no, you're mistaken, Ibrahim. These are not statues. Na'budu Asnam, and there's Asnam. They represent deities in a certain way, as a conduit, as a container, as we mentioned, the 5 types, and maybe more types to be added. But that's it. So you are mistaken. So I say, okay, I will demonstrate you this is all nonsense, and broke them and hang the chain on the neck of one of them and say, okay, ask him. And we know from other considerations that they believe these are pointing and connected to some divine beings which are eternal in the sky, represented by certain heavenly bodies. At the time, people believe the sky has no corruption, it's eternal, and so on. They didn't have enough astronomy and so on. But even that did not persuade Ibrahim when he was discussing about the stars and so on. He noticed that say there's one star which is very significant and so on, but it rises and falls. He said, I don't accept someone who rises and falls. This is a sign of deficiency, sign of contingency, sign of limitation. This cannot be the necessary existing. Maybe at the time he did not have this concept like we have it now, so clear, established. But he concluded that cannot be the deity I'm looking. Then he looks at the moon and at the sun. Then ultimately say, I forsake all that what you worship. But they're worshipping idols. That's the idols pointing to these entities. So they are really star and heavenly body worshipper, as we know now from the inscription and the cuneiform and so on. Established with absolute certitude, that they were worshipping. And these idols are a representation on earth, which are conduit and so on. We know that with certainty now. Everyone knows it that way. Every archaeologist knows that. That's beyond any doubt. Even the tables of moon eclipses, they say the god will rise at this day. The god will sing at this day. They don't use the word moon. The god, the moon god, the god, and they know from the context it is the moon god. So that's it. So he refused that based on the necessity of reason. And he's the first philosopher in history, I would say, does that and say these things are all ephemeral. They are limited. They cannot be the necessary existing. They could not have being the creator or the one brought in. They could be all of them eternal. So who is the one eternal who brought everything in existence that he is himself not created? Say, وجهت وجهي الذي خلق السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا but that's the only one. The only one. All other things is just figures of imagination, is false and wrong. So this is by Ibrahim, 4,000 years back from our time, or 2,000 years before Christ, roughly. Just observing the sky. These movements, they are limited. They're contained in a space. There's a limitation. They cannot be necessarily existing. That cannot be contained by any space. What is it done long ago by Ibrahim? In a language suitable for his time and the level of accumulated knowledge and philosophy at that time, which is none essentially, but still enough in the language and the experience of human beings. And he applied it. I said, we gave Ibrahim his rushd, his rationality before that. And we are aware about him. That's the rationality. So everyone on earth was irrational, was tapping in the dark, following what the parents say and so on. I think it must be the truth. We are traditionalists. We follow what the parents and grandparents said. Because the parents had said it, not because there's evidence supporting that independent evidence, which is impossible. Truth cannot be found this way. So that's already settled down, but the Wahhabis are going back even the time before before the great grandfathers of Ibrahim and so on. Even worse. In the time, I don't think any human being, even in the time of hunter-gatherer, have such a stupid idea, thinking that if he believes in idols, that the idols do not harm and don't, otherwise why he should stretch and kiss and because you think somehow they hear him, they feel him, they can respond to him. So it's not just pure stone. Something is there. What's it? Something that we can elaborate. And claiming they do that all, absolutely nothing. Just because mediate with Allah Ta'ala, but even there, if they don't hear nothing and so on, well, what else? Why you kiss them then? Confused. So the Wahhabis not only step back in history to the pagan times like 8,000 years before Noah and so on, they step back into before Adam, time of the monkeys and the gorillas. Give me another explanation. How can someone kiss the idols and light candles and bring sacrifice even and spend money and so on? Unless they think that things in front of him somehow having divine attributes or connected to a divine and can respond and he can benefit from this action. If he believes it's a stone, cannot do anything at all. There's so many stones around. Why this one specifically? It's impossible. It's actually inconceivable. Even with except for someone from the mental institution, we exclude those anyway. They are poor guys. They are not addressed by any divine or human address. Leave them alone. Anyone else say. If you tell him, come, there is an idol there. If you sacrifice, you get what you wish for. Or the oracle there will tell you something. And he goes and does that because he believes that may be true. He's testing at least the idol. Think the idol. That's as simple as that. Otherwise, I tell you, if it's just a stone like any other stone, I have stones next to them. In the backyard, I have a mountain there. It could be doing as well as this. So what difference between this and the stone in the backyard of my house? If I'm in a stony city like Mecca, or if in a vast desert, what's about if there are many stones scattered there? You'll not find that there's no stone whatsoever, very rarely. Maybe the big desert and so on, everything is covered by sand. It's impossible to see how could this nonsense fit in one's brain. It means he has no brain. He has a brain disease. Just to conclude that. Anyway, I think that's enough. And then from the discussion, we can improve on things, inshallah, when we do the next edit. Because this is a never-ending job, edit and improvement. Not relying what Ibn Taymiyyah said or Qurtubi or that. We get that, analyze it, and proceed further towards the Quran, because the Quran, the abstract entity, is inexhaustible. Maybe another generation will add fine points, but in these basic things, I say we exhausted the main things, which really make a distinction between Islam and Kufr. There may be fine things which only the mystics and the Sufi and the data. That scream on the top of the things. That's not required for everyone. Yes, that's it. That's still plenty of them to go there. Plenty of them. Plenty.